Welcome in. It is a Sports by the Book special. Our NFL previews rolling along here for the 2025 season. I'm Jeff Parles. She is Alex White. And Alex, we're back in New York with the AFC side of things. The New York Jets, who currently hold the longest playoff drought in North American sports. Based off the odds, it doesn't look like that streak will end, but it's a whole new era with Gang Green.
I'm really excited to talk about this division here in the AFC East. Of course, Buffalo Bills at the top of that division and the favorite right now to come out of the AFC. So that is going to be very tough. But the other three, a lot of question marks, some changes here, Miami, Jets, and the Patriots. But today it is all about the New York Jets.
You see there on your screen, Jets at the bottom of the division, win total of 6. They're almost 5-1 to make the postseason here at the South Point, and those numbers just keep going up. Division at 15-1. And conference and championship, which not in the cards this year, but there are a lot of things you can look at here on this New York Jet team. Again, Jets have not been in the postseason since 2010, which is the longest streak in franchise history of not making the postseason. It is the longest stretch in the National Football League, and forget just the National Football League, as I said in the open, it is the longest playoff list streak currently going into North American four major sports across the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and the National Football League. And after last year, there are a lot of, again, it's a very different way to look at the Jets, especially in comparison to the last 2 years, where Aaron Rodgers was there. The expectations were sky high in 2023. Rodgers ruptures his Achilles on the first series of the year. That's that. Expectations are high again going into 2024, not quite as high as they were going into 2023. And the Jets have the worst record in the NFL in one-score games and go 5-12. And Rodgers now, of course, is in Pittsburgh. Robert Saleh is fired after 5 games. Jeff Ulbrich came in and was arguably the worst coach in the NFL other than Antonio Pierce in his interim run. So the Jets completely clean house. Joe Douglas fired midstream as well. Darren Morgie, now the GM. And, of course, now Aaron Glenn, the former first-round pick of the New York Jets when he played in the Jets in the 90s and the early 2000s. Now the head coach for a first time, and at least this offseason, the Jets are doing a lot of things very differently, very quietly. They were able to give contract extensions to their 2 young superstars in Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, getting out in front of everything. It's a very different vibe with the Jets entering this year in comparison to the last 2 years.
I mean, it is a 180 vibe here, and you mentioned it, very quiet, right? And I like that Aaron Glenn has come in here and kind of wanted to change the culture immediately and do things different. I mean, he let 2 really good players walk with Aaron Rodgers and then Devontae Adams, but he wanted to do things his way and get guys in here that he trusted, and I think they've done a really good job with this roster. So let's go through this schedule and take a look here. This is a very low number here at 6, but the thing is, I mean, the Jets in the last few years, they've already had the makeup. They've already had the roster to have elite defenses, and we know that, and we know with Robert Saleh being a defensive guy. Now you bring in Aaron Glenn, who was also a very good defensive player when he was in the NFL, and he's going to continue that, that's for sure. So 6 wins, that's what we're looking at. That's the number. So let's start with the schedule and see if we can find more than that.
So this very simple for the Jets. Survive the first 8 weeks before the bye week. Survive them. It's a very difficult beginning of the year. You open with 2 home games, but you're an underdog week 1 against Aaron Rodgers in the return game to MetLife and the Steelers. And then you play Buffalo, who is the betting favorite to win not just the AFC East, but the AFC at large.
Yep.
And they have to go to Tampa, which is a very difficult game in that Florida heat in September. Then you get Miami. So back-to-back games in the heat down in Florida. And then you return home, you get Dallas, and then you go across the pond to play the Broncos, and then Carolina, and then Cincinnati. If the Jets can get out of those first 8 weeks at 3-5, I feel confident they are going over 6, over 5.5 that is out there. Because the back end of your schedule, as you see, you have a lot of winnable games on that back end. Cleveland, they'll be favored in that game, even if the Jets are like 1-7. That could be 2 of the worst records in the NFL. Jets will be favored on the virtual home field. Both New England games are winnable in my book. You can beat Miami at home. You can beat the Falcons. You'll probably be favored at New Orleans. Jacksonville's a coin flip game. Really, other than Baltimore and Buffalo, and who the hell knows, Buffalo could be sitting their guys in Week 18 if they have the division and their whatever seed they are locked in. that could be a game the Jets could accidentally win. So there is a path to winning 7, 8 games, or if things go extraordinarily well, 9 for the Jets. It's really just survive the beginning, which is a very brutal, other than that game against Carolina, every one of those teams' win totals are 8 or more in the first 8 weeks of the season. So it is a very difficult stretch to begin the year, Alex.
It really is. And you said it perfect, like 8, 9. And people might think that sounds crazy here for a team that is booked at a 6. But I redid this schedule, went over it 2 or 3 times. And one time I did have them going 8 and 9. One time I said they had 9 winnable games and then kind of landed right there, 7 and 10 or 8 and 9 for the season for this Jets team. But there is a lot of upside. I do think that their ceiling is pretty high here. I like Justin Fields. I've always been a Justin Fields fan. I never even really wanted him to leave Chicago because I did see a lot of promise in him. This is the year, right? This is the turnaround that we want to see from him. Like you mentioned, they signed Garrett Wilson, so he is going to have a really good weapon there in the wide receiver room. Breece Hall coming off a little bit of a banged up year, so expecting to see him back in full strength for their offense. And yeah, I already talked about their defense. So of the teams that are here at 5.5 and 6, I do think that this is one that is a pretty favorable over. And we've talked about the schedules a lot, especially me, with who they are playing in which divisions. Well, the Bills, one of the reasons why they are the favorite to win the AFC overall is because their division does get to play the NFC South. So while it is tough with the AFC North, they do match up nicely with the South. And you brought up a few of those teams that they could definitely take wins from.
Well, look, this is all going to come down to a few factors. Again, we don't know what Aaron Glenn is as a head coach. We don't know that. We don't know what Tanner Anstrat, who comes over with Glenn, who was the quarterback coach in Detroit.
Right.
What are we getting out of Angstrat? We don't know. We don't know what he is as a play caller. And then you brought up Justin Fields. Of course, Fields, the Steelers and the Jets basically do a quarterback switcheroo. What are we getting out of Fields? That's the whole ball of wax here. The Jets signed him to a 2-year contract where, look, if Fields has a big year and the Jets overachieve, you know what? All right, he's under contract again. We don't have to worry about it for another year. If he underachieves, all right, we just cut bait. And if the Jets are one of the worst teams in the league, they're going to have an opportunity to potentially trade up for Arch Manning or Garrett Nussmeier as a top potential, hey, we're going to use the top flight draft pick again. This is such an odd spot for the Jets, too, and it's an odd spot for Fields. Dating back to 2018, even though there were no expectations, realistically speaking, in 2018 and 2021, when Darnold was a rookie in 18 and Zach Wilson was a rookie in 2021. The Jets have had their quote-unquote savior as their quarterback every single year since 2018, whether it was Darnold or, as comical as it sounds now, Zach Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Justin Fields is not brought in here to save the franchise. He's brought in here to provide stable quarterback play with a little bit of upside. And quite frankly, other than the guys who are available, his upside is a lot more than the Russell Wilsons or the Jameis Winston or the other veterans that were out there. So for me, I want to see what Angstrat is as a play caller, and I want to see what type of utilization of Fields' legs and how much throwing and how much trust of Fields' arm this offense goes with. The defense I expect to be good. Again, they were awful last year. They completely fell off a cliff after Saleh got fired. Ulbrich just could not handle the interim head coaching and defensive coordinator responsibility at once. Steve Wilkes is the defensive coordinator. We know what he is. He's a league average, maybe even slightly above league average DC. That defense still has too much talent to be as bad as they were a year ago. Would expect them to regress positively into being about a back-end top 10 defense in the NFL. But for me, I'm with you. This is a win total over. Find a 5.5. Go over it. If the Jets get through the first 8 weeks at 3-5, we're coasting. We're coasting to over 5.5, and we're probably coasting to over 6 as well. I think this is, if they get through 3-5, they're winning 7, 8, 9 games this year. They're not good enough to probably make the playoffs, but if you want to take a shot, if you can find a 5-1, I don't hate it. There are worse long shots. But I'd just rather have that low win total over. I think this is a team that is capable of again, regressing to the positive on close losses. Remember, they lost every single close game, but 2 a year ago. They only had 2 one-score wins. This is just a team that you expect to regress positively this year with how bad everything went a year ago.
Power rating wise, comparing them to their division opponents here, I really do think that they have a shot here to be number 2 in this division.
agree.
So to go along with you taking a shot to make the playoffs, it's not terrible, because if they do finish second and they can get 9 wins, they could get a wild card spot here in the playoffs to represent the AFC. So I don't hate that at all. I want to finish going through all of my AFC teams, but
Sure.
really, I am interested, excited to see what happens in this division, because it is wide open. I know New England is the sexy pick, and Miami, there's a lot of unknowns. What happens with Tua and Tyreek Hill? And, we have seen the best of them and we have seen the worst of them, and which one are we getting this year? So a lot of unknowns there, but it'll be interesting to see where these 4 actually fall. Picking an exacta in this division might be the toughest of any division.
Well, you know who's going to be 1. And again, unless if Josh Allen gets hurt, and even if Josh Allen gets hurt, it's still is probably Buffalo's division with the gap between these teams. But look, the fight for second is there. A lot of people are very high on New England. We'll get to the Patriots a little bit later in our previews. I am not one of those people who's particularly high on them. And I think Miami's got major bottom out potential with all the question marks. Forget around the team itself, just the locker room itself might implode down there in South Beach. So the opportunity's there. So far of these bottom feeders, these 5.5 and 6s, the Jets are pretty clearly the best of these bottom teams in the NFL, with the best opportunity to potentially go high. But again, if the Jets went 4-13, wouldn't shock me. Fields doesn't play well. They have to go to Taylor at some point. Tyrod's still the backup. And the Jets lose a lot of close games. Maybe Glenn is not a particularly good head coach in year 1. Yeah, 4-13's in play here. But I would lean to the positive regression after last year's nightmare across the board, every which way for the New York Jets. All right.
Any awards bets for you?
Yeah, there's nothing here. The only thing that I will tell you from a non-traditional thing, Garrett Wilson's going over 1,000 yards again. You can get plus money on Garrett Wilson at both DraftKings and FanDuel to go over 1,000 yards receiving. He's gone over 1,000 yards receiving in every single year of his career. If he stays healthy, he's going over 1,000 again. And look at the quarterbacks he did it in the first 2 years with. Just a collection of complete garbage the first 2 years in his career. And now he's got Justin Fields, he's not Aaron Rodgers. Even Rodgers in the down year was still probably better than what Fields' peak could be, unless Fields surprises. Those first 2 years, the quarterback play was an abject train wreck, and he still went over 1,000. So Garrett Wilson, over 1,000 yards, plus 125, I think is by margin the best New York Jet related award, prop, whatever you want to call it here, Alex.
I am very interested to see what they do with Justin Fields. And you can see right on the graphic, I mean, there's plenty of different props for him with passing yards, passing touchdowns. And then right there, the rushing yards over 1,000. That is a lot of rushing yards for a quarterback. I know Lamar Jackson didn't even hit that last year, but I do think that he is a very good dual threat quarterback. So that one is very interesting to me.
Yep.
But I like your Garrett Wilson one. I mean, not as juicy of a price there, but I think it is a lot safer.
It's a plus money price still.
That's right.
It's still plus money. It's pretty darn good in this circumstance. All right. This has been the New York Jet preview. We're going to keep previewing all the teams in the National Football League as we go through all 32, leading you up to kickoff that first Thursday of September. We're looking forward to it. Again, if you are watching us for the first time, hit that subscribe button, Sports by the Book and South Point Studio as well. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on both at Sports by the Book on most social medias, at Sports by the Book LV on Instagram as well. Alex and I will be back with the next preview next time right here. She's Alex White. I'm Jeff Parles. This has been the New York Jet preview here in the 2025 NFL previews here at Sports by the Book, live as always from the South Point Hotel and Casino in lovely Las Vegas.